Hello again. Another quick-fire response clip for you. And I'm going to do more of these, hopefully, generally in response to the utterly hysterical British press, the so-called Free Press, which now sings from the same hymn sheet, once more, Liberal and Tory alike. The last few days, weeks and months have given birth to acres of column inches dedicated to the denigration and humiliation of Russia. This crisis has broadly given rise to some of the absolute worst takes imaginable, and none are worse than the takes of the self-important, self-appointed, not to mention thick as fuck, conscience of liberal Britain, James O'Brien. What will quickly become apparent is, in times of war, how closely the liberal conscience echoes the neoconservative conscience. Let's dive in.
I thought I'd begin this morning by just telling you what I think, with that absolute caveat that the claim to knowing anything is, at the very least, supremely flimsy.
Especially when it comes to the sounds emitted from the mouth of James O'Brien.
So what terrifies Vladimir Putin most is people looking west. What has in many ways defined his regime is a terror of people looking west. If you want to stop an oppressed citizenship from appreciating the fruits of democracy, and our political system is obviously far from perfect, but you have to persuade them that what they see, that the grass is not greener on the other side of the river.
Pray tell me, what happened when the leaders of Russia last, quote-unquote, looked west in pursuit of Western-style liberal reforms? Having experienced economic growth decade after decade, the peoples of the Soviet Union were finally given a taste of boom and bust. In 1989, after a failed attempt at economic restructuring via perestroika, the people of Russia were made to feel the reality of a Western poverty system. Gorbachev and Yeltsin, the two Russian leaders best understood as ensconced in Western politics, are the most universally despised politicians in Russian history. Do the Russian people really desire neoliberal reforms, along the lines of those implemented by Anatoly Shubez, Jeffrey Sachs, and others? Or do they, in fact, desire the structured development of their country to the benefit of their people? Do they want the natural wealth of Russia to be used for Russia, based on the popularity of both Putin and the Communist Party of the Russian Federation? I'd say the majority of Russians desire the latter course of action.
Think of North Korea. That is pretty much what you would have to undertake in order to ensure that your citizens never got to see the colour of the grass on the other side of the river.
Except, of course, for the fact that thousands of North Koreans do depart from home soil and return. There are thousands of Koreans with work visas that visit China, Japan, South Korea, and other countries besides. Pig-headed, ignorant, arrogant Orientalist propaganda from O'Brien. This is standard messaging here in the UK.
Russia, partly because of its history, its geographical location, crucially, and also because of the money, the dollars, the rubles. Putin couldn't do that because, unlike Kim Jong-un, Putin and his cronies love the fruits of Western luxury. They absolutely love it. So you can't keep those drawbridges up. You can't keep those doors closed.
It should be noted, of course, that the vast majority of Britons and Americans never get a taste of this vaunted luxury that O'Brien mentions. Most of us didn't go to independent boarding schools for the well-bred like O'Brien.
And the eyes turn to the west, not in pursuit of Gucci handbags and Bentley cars, which is what, of course, the oligarchs fill their boots with, but just in pursuit of freedoms. The freedom, for example, to say in public that you think the government is rubbish.
First off, how did these supposed quote-unquote oligarchs come to acquire their wealth? Of course, as a result of Western interference and infiltration of a socialist system. So it's rich of O'Brien to blame this on Russia. For all my criticisms of Putin, he's actually re-established the strength of the Russian state in some respects, and in response to the potential of war with NATO, it's likely he will further extend the role of the Russian state in political life. As for the classical liberal fetish of free expression, who can lay claim to any material form of free expression in a country like Britain? A country whose press is controlled by tax dodgers, whose capital is controlled by the very same oligarchs we empowered in destroying the Soviet Union. A country which sees fit to silence political expression on the airwaves as soon as it becomes inconvenient to the imperialist ruling class. People like O'Brien are so lost in the fetish ideal of freedom that they can't distinguish their own lies from material reality. Britain is a deeply authoritarian and anti-democratic country. It's just that O'Brien has acquired enough money to access the freedom that is so arbitrarily denied to others down the food chain.
Without getting thrown in jail. The freedom, for example, to access media that will speak truth to power, shine lights into the darkest corner of a country. Again, please don't think this is a paean to perfect Western democracies, but in comparison, when everything is relative, the grass is considerably greener here for ordinary people than it is there.
Bro, citation needed. We're an advanced post-imperial liberal democracy. Russia's only been at the capitalist game since 1991, and it is relatively underdeveloped. Please allow the oxygen of reality to permeate your analysis just for a second.
And when people look to the West, the bad stuff happens as far as Vladimir Putin is concerned. Most obviously with the revolution in, wait for it, Ukraine, when ordinary people were close enough to the window on the West to see how green the grass was here.
I'll pause here. By the same token, when highlighting the phenomenon of Ukrainians looking west, if O'Brien was an honest host, he'd likewise highlight the overwhelming support for Russia in the east of Ukraine. Once again, the obvious isn't in the purview of O'Brien's gaze. There was a groundswell of dissent against Yanukovych, but far from being a Kremlin puppet, Yanukovych was the democratically elected leader of Ukraine, and he was removed from power illegally without recourse to legal or electoral means. Let's get real. The legitimate leader of Ukraine wasn't removed from power because of corruption. Here in Britain, we tolerate corruption of the same degree on the regular. Anyone recall the Panama Papers, implication of Cameron and Osborne, or COVID-19 when the Tories saw fit to enrich their mates with contracts whilst depopulating our care homes? Yanukovych was removed because he saw benefit in forging closer ties with the East, and this was against the better judgment of NATO and the domestic reactionaries that would come to constitute Ukraine's fascist coup government.
And in the same breath, if you like, understand the corruption of their leader, their Kremlin apologist placeman who was president there, and the epic wealth. As soon as the epic wealth that he had accrued became clear to the Ukrainian people, most obviously, I don't know if you remember, there was a sort of massive pirate ship full of jewels or some ridiculous folly that the truth got out. And if you can't control the media, if you can't control the news, then you can't keep information like that away from the people.
The irony is so overbearing, it hurts to point it out, but our government has just banned a legitimate media organisation, in the shape of Russia Today, which platformed a plethora of views on a range of current affairs programmes. The paper freedom to free expression means nothing in a media landscape controlled by billionaire capitalists. O'Brien should point this out, but he's unfortunately in the pay of said billionaire capitalists.
And if the people get that information, they will no longer put up with it. So there are two things that terrify Vladimir Putin. One is the people looking to the west and seeing the colour of the grass, the greenness of the grass. And the other is the Russian people finding out about how rich he is and about what he's got, about his secret Dakars and his Bond villain lairs and the fortunes he has secreted in oligarchs' bank accounts all over the world. Those are the two biggest threats to Vladimir Putin.
Sounds like an accurate description of the shady dealings of one much celebrated liberal Lionheart, that being President Zelensky, voted in specifically to combat corruption, but now exposed by the Paradise Papers as being just as corrupt as those he originally claimed to target.
So you can speak all you like about geopolitics and realpolitik and whatever it may be, but the bottom line is what terrifies him most is the loss of status. And status for Vladimir Putin is this bizarre cocktail of wealth and power.
Putin never had any status in British media circles or Western military-industrial circles to begin with, and polling demonstrates he's gained considerable support since intervening in Ukraine on behalf of the Donbass republics. O'Brien is either incapable or uninterested in pointing out the facts of the case, but most frustrating of all, he's not a marginal voice. In the information war against the East, O'Brien represents the Russophobic Orientalist mainstream of liberal opinion. Across my socials, I'm having to engage with similarly self-absorbed shitlibs who lack an internationalist perspective and put their ideals before reality at every turn. I'm signing off now. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want. What are your thoughts on the new proxy war in Ukraine? What are your thoughts on the dirty information war the West is engaging in? Agree with me, disagree, let me know. Take care. This has been Socialist Quick Fix, signing off.